Welcome to Ordinary People Doing Extraordinary Things, the podcast show. I'm your host, Carrie Roberts. Today's conversation is part of our Connected Conversation series where I interview happy and healthy couples about how they met, their story, and how they got together. So I have another wonderful couple. I have Laura and Russ Burton. Welcome. So excited you're here.
Thank you for having us.
So I always like to kind of start from the beginning, kind of a question for each of you. And Laura, I'll start with you. So when you were young and you think like, it could be middle school or high school, and you kind of think about like the person you're going to meet or what that life will be like or what dating will be like or marriage or anything like that, did you have a thought in your head of what you thought that would be like as a young girl?
Well, Carrie. So, kind of, I guess.
Gonna take this away. He's cut off already.
So it was mostly not the best choices throughout middle school and high school.
I mean, can anybody really say that though?
Yeah, but what was your thought like in your head? Like, oh, I want him to be this way or that. Did you have any of that in your head?
No, it was more probably leather jackets, motorcycles, fast cars type of men.
And I have seen all of those things.
Yeah, really not like one in particular type, I guess. It was just kind of all over the place. Never really, I didn't really settle down and decide what type of person I wanted to be with until I really figured out what kind of person that I was wanting to be. And that wasn't really until I was around 30 years old where I was just like, all right, well, it's time to really start making some good choices. So, I looked at my past and looked at all the people that I had dated before and said, all right, I got to scratch this and kind of go for somebody who's not really my type.
That's interesting. I mean, I ask this question to everyone and it's always a little bit different. And it's interesting. You said, okay, there was a certain look that you went after, but you didn't really like imagine relationships per se in your head. So Russ, I'm always interested in the male perspective because I always think women think about this more, but I could be wrong. When you were a young man, were you thinking or imagining like, oh, someday I'll get married or this is the girl I want, or were you not really even thinking about it at all?
I would say, I mean, as far as anything serious, I don't think I really thought about that until I got to college. And honestly, it was probably when my sister started having kids and I became an uncle where it's like, oh, wow, I'm like a grown up now. I should, and I loved, I just loved that part of being an uncle. And I was like, I might like to do this for myself. And that's when I started thinking forward that, fatherhood and being married is something I might want. I had, when I was in college, my goal was I'm going to be married and have kids by the time I was 25. Fast forward to 40 when I meet Laura. It's kind of funny that plans don't work out, necessarily the way you think, but I can tell you there's times where I almost got married in that gap and it would have been, a terrible mistake. So it's, I wouldn't have changed a thing.
Yeah, it's interesting how some people think so young, like they plan their whole life. And both of you were kind of like, I didn't really think about it kind of until much later, which is kind of interesting. Yeah. So I am going to put the camera just on you for a second. And I want you to, I don't know who wants to start first, about how the two of you met and how you want to tell that story. Russ, I feel like you should start this.
I think so too.
I'm going to put the camera on you and you're going to tell us how the two of you met. Go ahead.
Okay, so the first time, so we kind of met in waves, but I will say the very first time I became aware of Laura, I was basically working at this gym that she was working at. I was kind of doing some social media stuff, and I had this idea to put together a Christmas video. And I just had everybody from the gym, all the employees saying Merry Christmas, just to kind of keep going that family environment, which, we both loved about the gym. And I probably got about 15, 20 total videos. But hers with her two kids totally stood out to me as, it was just like, wow, these guys are totally adorable. I want to know more about them. And I would say I don't know, it necessarily went further than that at that point, but that's when she kind of came on my radar. And then, we probably had a couple of brief interactions, but I remember I was actually on a date with somebody else from the gym, and we met up at like an event that other people were at, and Laura was one of them. And we met up for lunch really quick. Laura was with her at the place where, where we were eating. And I did not like this girl very much that I was on a date with, and I was kind of regretting being there. And I liked her so much. I liked Laura so much, and, just felt the immediate attraction and just intrigue that I wouldn't even look at her, because I felt so guilty that I'm like, I really want to be on a date with this girl, but I have to go out with this one. So that sounds so terrible. I'm sorry. But I mean, that's how it worked for me. I was just, immediately I was like, wow, I want to know more about this girl. I want to, get to know her better. And, not too much long after that, we finally went on our first date.
And Laura, did you have this experience with him? Like, did you even remember him taking the video or being interested, or it wasn't until he asked you out?
No. So actually the girl that he went out with that time, tried to set us up for months and months and months. And then I just had no interest in dating at the time and just wasn't there yet. And so finally, when that date that he was on and I was kind of the third wheel, and I'm cracking jokes and I'm just being ridiculous, and he wouldn't even look at me. I was like, this dude hates me. I gotta go. Like, all right, see you guys later. And he's just like, okay, man.
It was so awkward.
And then it was a few months later, and he came in I was working one night, and he came in to do some social media posts, and we were following each other on Facebook and stuff like that already, just through gym connections and stuff. And he came in to take some pictures and was posting a lot about a play that he was in, because he used to do a lot of local theater. And I was like, hey, how's your play going? And it was just like, boom, he was on the desk. He's like, let me tell you all about me.
Oh, you're asking about me. Well, my favorite subject. Let's talk.
So then he's, I don't know, somewhere along the lines, I dropped something about liking like Americana music, into like the bluegrass scene, just moved back from North Carolina and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden, like in the next couple of weeks, it was just one song after another of bluegrass posts on his Facebook page trying to get my attention, I think. And so I finally made a comment on one of them, and I was like, hey, I love this song. And he's like, boom, like sent me a message and was like, hey, how's it going?
I slid into her DMs, as the kids say.
So wait, is that how you asked her out, through the DM? How did you officially take it?
Yeah. So, all right. So I technically still do, but not as much, but I was a wedding DJ at the time also. And I was working this wedding, and this whole time we're messaging each other. I'm like getting ready, setting up for the cocktail hour and stuff. And, it was very clear that there was an attraction there. And I just said, hey, come crash this wedding. Why don't you just show up and just hang out? They're pretty cool people. I work with them. They'll be fine with it. And she was going to, but one of her kids was sick. So obviously that ended that. And I was like so persistent because, at that time I had gone after, I'd been on a string of just like bad dates, bad experiences. I was like, no, there's something here. I'm not, not taking no for an answer. So I said, hey, what about tomorrow? Because, all the hot dates are happening on Sundays. So I was like, what about tomorrow? And she's like, you know what? Yeah, that sounds great. And, I picked a dinner spot, and it was such an amazing date. It was one of those things where we went for dinner, and it's like, hey, let's check out this place, and just one place after another. Just neither of us wanted the date to end. It was great.
Yeah, we just talked and talked and talked, and we went from dinner to drinks at one place, and then went back across town and had checked out this other place, and then we ended the night at a coffee shop and just kind of hung out and drank tea and talked and talked and talked, and we're finally like, all right, we gotta go.
Yeah.
Like, it's getting late.
And eventually you even talked too. It was great. It wasn't all me.
So now I think, we've had a bunch of couples on this show, and again, all different stories in general. Sure. And, Laura, I think one thing that's interesting about you, which I resonate with, is that you were married once before, and you had kids with this person. And so dating after divorce is challenging, I think. And I'm curious, when you met Russ, was it initially different from other people you dated? Was there any fear or anxiety of like, I'm not ready for this? Like, was there anything of that? Because again, coming from something that you thought might have worked that didn't can kind of bring up these weird feelings.
Oh, 100%. So when we first met, I had gone out on a couple of weird random like lunch dates and stuff like that just were bad. And I was like, this is just horrible. And then there was one night I just kind of, divorce takes an emotional toll off, like just digs into you so bad. And so I was having this like breakdown one night and I was like, I'm done like being this just sad. I'm done all of this. Like, I just want to be I want to set an example for my kids and just be a strong, independent, single mom and kick ass and just like go for it. And I started thinking about like all the men that I had dated and I was like, well, I should probably find a new type. So when Russ started messaging me, I was like, he's not my type. And like, I was talking to some friends of mine and I was, sending them pictures. I'm like, check this guy out. He's really cute. I really like him. And they're like, okay, what's the problem? I'm like, he's not my type.
What's the problem?
And it really they're like, well, your type sucks. I'm like, yeah, my type really does suck. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to give this guy a try and see what happens. And it turned out to be a ton of fun. And I mean, we still have fun. We still crack each other up every single day. And it's just, there's no stress, no drama. And it's been healthy for us. It's been healthy for the kids. It's just been really just a positive, amazing relationship so far.
Now, Russ, on the other side, Russ, you had not been married. Was there any reservation for you to be like, okay, I'm not only interested in this girl, but now she has children, so I have to accept all three of them. Was there any reservation for you, or like, no, these kids are great, it doesn't matter to me at all?
It's a really good question. I would say about 5 or 6 years before I met her, I might have, because I fell in love so much with the idea of being a dad that, you get pigeonholed into this is what that idea is. But I would say as probably about once I hit 35, it kind of realization swept in that let's be realistic. If you meet a woman now, she most likely has kids of her own. You need to be open to that idea. And I would say I had dated only a couple girls before her that had kids. And they were just not good experiences where they introduced me way too quick. And I'd even told them that maybe this is, maybe we pump the brakes a little bit, because you never know if it doesn't work out. You don't want these kids to just have a revolving door of people coming in. So that's why I think what made this so great is that we had our own time before I met the kids and before there was that introduction. So we could, get to know each other a little bit, and she could feel me out and make sure that I was okay to bring around them. It was kind of little doses, but it became clear right from the beginning, as everything else in our relationship, that it was like, okay, this is good. Like we need to pursue this more. So.
Yeah, there was a lot of introductions to family first, to my parents of like, hey, I really like this guy. What does your gut feeling say? Because I've made some really bad choices. And then same with my sister, because I'm like, if anybody is going to be brutally honest, if I'm doing something really stupid, it's going to be my sister, right? So I had her meet him first. I'm like, is this okay? Am I doing okay? Like, because I'm getting a different feeling on this one. So
is that why I met her in public?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
that makes sense.
That's interesting. And Laura, I think one of the things, again, this could be male or female, but I think when you've been in a relationship, and again, I use divorce because it's just can be more traumatic, but if you've been in any long-term relationship and you ended, it can feel traumatic. Mm-hmm. Was there like you kept saying, okay, it was good. How did you kind of notice the difference between, okay, Russ is a genuine person, he really cares about me, this is good, versus, am I missing something? Or, I know you said you were checking with your family, but was there kind of any other way that made you realize like, no, this is real, this is genuine, this is a good person?
Well,
sorry, I'll look away.
Honestly, it was, coming out of a divorce, there's a little bit of PTSD, and especially after a really bad, messy, awful divorce. There's a lot of PTSD. So, you know, coming into a relationship like this, and I would have like a flashback or, you know, to a horrible fight that I had had with my ex, or, you know, something would come up where I would just burst into tears. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready for this. I don't know if I can do this. And he would just sit there and hold me and let me cry and say, it's going to be okay. You're going to get through this. Instead of he never lost his patience with me, never got upset about anything, and just let me work through all the things that I needed to work through. And just the amount of patience and understanding that he had and still has is just tremendous. And that was kind of like the big sign of just like, he's never going to be an ass. So, you know, it was just very reassuring. And that was the big thing.
I love that. And as he's looking at, I'm like, this is so cute. You know, I think Russ, one of the stereotypes or challenges for some men is that they're not emotionally available, or they can't be there, whether or not they can't do that for everyone, or maybe it's not the right person. Do you think your ability to kind of be there for her, even though maybe this didn't affect, you know, you didn't do this to her, she's upset from past experiences, was that something you like naturally had because like, oh, I had this in my family growing up, or how did you know how to kind of be there for her?
I will say it's really tough because it's not anything I had to think about by any means. I will say, you know, I did watch my sister go through a pretty bad divorce as well. And I think, you know, just seeing, you know, what it took for her to get there, and, you know, and then seeing how eventually happy that she would end up being, you know, with her husband now, it's like, okay, so that's the process. That's what, you know, it goes through. And honestly, you know, I'm not trying to be cheesy, but I think because I had so many not great experiences leading up to it, I knew that I had something special, and I just started thinking, okay, I'm just going to hang in there because, you know, I'm not going to let this get away. Obviously this isn't ideal, you know, the way, you know, maybe necessarily how it all, you know, what she was coming out of or anything, you know, it's not obviously what somebody wants to go through, but I knew that we would be better for it at the end. So it was just, you know, just write it out and just be there as much as I can.
I love that. That's wonderful. So you start dating for a while, and who said I love you first, and at what point did that happen?
So
that was me.
100% did. Because he's definitely very more, he's just stumbled over my words.
Yeah.
You're much more open with your feelings than I am.
I think that's pretty fair to say. Yeah.
Again, that's not usually it's the female stereotypically. That's not to say again all the time. So that's interesting.
I'm kind of a Renaissance man, Carrie. I don't know what to tell you.
He's like, I mean, I'm just saying. Laura's like, oh God. So okay, so you say it to her, Russ. What made you realize like I love this woman, and how was it different?
Like our first date.
Your first.
It was.
He was already in love when he took that Christmas video.
Yeah.
He was ready.
Yeah. It was the first date, but you know, I because I am such like a natural romantic, I've jumped in feet first so many times where, you know, I shouldn't have, you know, kind of before checking the water first, that I really wanted to be sure beforehand. And yeah, I remember the first date we were there. Can I tell the whole story?
Go for it.
Okay. So we were trying to say goodbye, and, you know, I leaned in for the first kiss, and this homeless guy came up and was asking us for money mid first kiss. So I didn't know what to do because it was so uncomfortable. So I just kept kissing her because I'm like, if I just keep making this awkward for him, he'll go away. And so we just kept kissing, and he's just like, oh, he loves you. He loves you. And I'm like, yeah, I do, but you could go away now. That might help.
That's what you actually said to the guy.
So really, the homeless man really set the tone.
We should have had him do the wedding. He really started it all. No, but I think when, you know, when it finally happened, it was, I'd seen so many different situations come up with her because it's, obviously divorce can lead, it's a rocky road to ramp into a new relationship, as you can see. So it took some experience, some things that happened for me to say, okay, now is the time for me to say I love you and let her know that I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. And, I'm invested.
And Laura, were you immediately like, yes, I agree, I believe that? Or again, was there any reservation coming from a divorced background?
I knew I loved him. But when he said it, it was just like, oh crap. It was like so real at that point. Like, all right, we're doing this. Great.
There's no turning back now.
No turning back. So, but yeah, I mean, I knew that he was amazing and that I loved him pretty much from the first couple of dates. Like I was like, this is going to be real. But, I had to constantly pull myself back and put up guards. And it's like, okay, baby steps and baby steps. So it was definitely like, you hear all those sappy love stories of falling head over heels in love, right? And this was very like, I had to walk into it and very carefully and, take our time with it. And it took a couple of years to really just build everything up and establish that deep trust with each other. So...
Yeah, you guys had done an episode where you kind of talked about your relationship a little bit, and there was a moment, I assume it's when you were dating, because you recently got married, but there was a moment, Russ, where she kept saying something to the effect of like, it's kind of like me and the kids and you were like, it's us. Like just kind of this annoyance of like, hello, can you talk about that? Because again, like Laura said, right? Like you're trying to be strong. You're my kids. Okay, I'm going to take care of us. Like I have to take care of the three of us. And you're like, hey, I'm over here. Yeah. How did you kind of, how did that make you feel? And how did you kind of both agree like, okay, no, we're a unit now. We're a family together.
Well, I will say to Laura's credit, she's extremely strong and just about the strongest person I've ever known. So she was that strong, independent, grown-ass woman. And, she was a great,
Was?
You know what I'm saying. But she thought of herself as that, that strong, like, bear cub mom, lioness, I have to protect my kids. Very much that single mom mentality, even into when we were dating for, the first year or two. So yeah, she would say, I have to do this, and just heaping all this weight on herself. And eventually I just snapped because I was so tired of her thinking, and that's what it became. It was more that I was worried that she thought of it as she has to take all this on her own. So it was just that reminder in the form of yelling at her that, that I'm here too. Like, this is us. It's not just you anymore. So yeah, that was my breaking point.
Yeah. And it's still a fight that our kids remember pretty vividly because it's
the only fight.
Because Russ doesn't yell. Like if we do fight, I definitely am the yeller and just get dramatic and and he's just like, okay, do you want to explain to me why you're upset right now?
No. Because I don't know.
So I'm like, I have to clean this and I have to get the kids' lunches ready and I have to keep their clothes. And I'm going on this whole list and stressing out and, the living room needs to be clean. And he's like, he just snapped and he's like, it's we. Like we can do all of this. And so every once in a while when I'm going on a tangent about a list or something, the kids will be like, it's we. So
it's our kitchen floor.
I think that's a really great moment. I think sometimes, we need to hear that in a really big way. And then we're like, oh yeah, I do have help. There is someone here, which is great. You kind of brought up that, which is something I've been asking all the couples too, because I think one of the things, the reason I started doing this series was to show, there are happy and healthy couples, but there aren't perfect couples. Everybody's got a different dynamic and every couple is going to have conflict and it's really about communication. So when you have those things, as you just kind of shared again, which I think is very common, there's one that's maybe a little more emotional, one that's not as much during conflict. How have you learned to kind of deal with that and communicate in the most healthy way?
I think a lot of it is just really focusing on the communication portion of it because I have a million things going on in my head all the time. You know, for my job, I'm balancing like 4 different roles type of thing, and tons of projects, and, you know, the kids and the house and this, and like, I always have lists going on in my head. And then sometimes when Russ doesn't read my mind, I get upset with him. It's just like, he's like, this is what you needed me to do. And I'm like, not that way. So I'll hear myself snap or get frustrated or kind of like, and then I'll see the look on his face like, oh crap, what'd I do wrong? And it's like, okay, I didn't explain myself beforehand and tell you exactly what I needed. And that's on me. And I'm sorry. Like, so I kind of have to take those steps back. I don't think besides the we argument, I don't think we've really ever got into it. It's mostly like those types of situations where we, you know, snip at each other, but then realize that we hurt each other and go back and try to fix it.
Well, and I will say, you know, you're talking about, you know, how I knew that this was different for me, you know, how I was ready, and the communication part of it. Cause I, you know, as much as I'm an open person, in every other relationship, I've been a terrible communicator, and honestly kind of selfish, you know, where I just be focusing on, you know, what I want. And it's like, if that person isn't meeting it, then like, oh, then this is terrible. But, you know, I think the fact that from the beginning, we've been very good at just saying, okay, this is where I'm at, you know, this is how I feel about that. You know, hey, what you just said, that made me feel not so great. Or even, you know, now, you know, cause we're stuck in the house for quarantine, and, you know, you think you're around each other so much that you can just know what's happening. But, you know, I think just the other day we had to break it down. Like, okay, right now we both probably feel like we're the only ones contributing in this way. Like, we're the only ones doing this. It's like, okay, but here's what I'm doing and here's what you're doing. So we know that's not true. You know, and just bringing that realization of like, hey, we're doing okay. We just might be frustrated and not expressing it, but it's like, as long as we're open about it, it'll, you know, I think we can put it to bed.
We're pretty good about at least taking one day a week where it's just like, here's a recap of our week. Here's, you know, here's the things that the kids did that annoyed the crap out of us. Sometimes we'll like just vent on that for a while.
Sometimes that needs 2 days.
Sometimes it's like, okay, here's where, you know, let's talk money for a little bit. Where are we at? You know, here's the things that are coming up, and here's, you know, what's the next big project on the house. And then, okay, here's how I'm feeling emotionally this week. And it's been a pretty rough week, or it's been a really great week, and I'm really excited about this coming up. And, you know, where are you at? And then we just take that time to just vent and really check in with each other. So
I like that. That's really good. So you recently got married. Russ, we want to know, how did you propose? And when did you realize, like, okay,
I love this story.
now I'm fully ready. Like, I'm ready to, we are us. She's on the same page.
Okay.
We are ready.
I mean, honestly, I don't know that there was a point where it wasn't in the cards. Because, you know, when you're in a relationship and it's, you know, you've been dating, you know, a year or two, and it's like, wow, we've lasted a year. Like, wow, that took forever. And with her, just time was flying by, and it's like, oh yeah, like, you know, going 30, 40 years, like that would be no problem whatsoever. You know, it'd go by in a flash. I could definitely see this being a thing. And it just, the whole family unit just felt so natural from the beginning. So it was just figuring out like how and when. And I knew exactly where I was going to buy the ring. Like I drove by it one day. There was like an antique and estate jewelry place down the street, because I knew she wouldn't just want like a, you know, no offense to them, I don't know if they're a sponsor, but, you know, wouldn't want like a Jared or something, you know, just something you can go in the store and buy. It's got to be a little bit more unique. So I found this one, you know, blue diamond. It's perfect. I'm like, okay, that's the ring. So I went in one day and just bought it. It's like, all right, now what? Like, now what am I going to do? And I knew I wanted to get the kids involved. I mean, there were a couple opportunities before I proposed where, you know, we were at a friend's wedding at a castle on the lake. And it's like, okay, how is this not the perfect place? But I knew I wanted the kids there. So a friend of ours does photography and had done family pictures for us in the past. So I had her stage a photo shoot. And we just kind of went through this park, and it ended at the tree where I first met the kids. Just kind of saying like, hey, if they wouldn't have approved of me, basically none of this would have happened. So it's only fitting that this is where it goes forward. And, you know, then I proposed to her right there under the tree. And the kids were there, and I had presents for them too, because I'm, proposing to them too, basically. So,
That's cute. And Laura, what was your reaction? How did you feel? Did it feel different again because this has happened once before, or you were like, this is totally different, this is the right
it was
person?
totally different. Yeah, it was super. I had no idea. Like, I knew he was going to propose at some point. I could feel it. The tension was like building for like months and months and months. And I'm like, what are you waiting for? Like, I know you're going to do it.
Hey, I just to pause really quick. The Valentine's before I proposed, the kids slid a Valentine in the mailbox saying, "Mommy, will you marry me? Love, Russ." So they were clearly hinting that they were okay with it and trying to speed it up. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So, so he staged the photo shoot, and we're going around, and my daughter's carrying this purse, like this little purse, and she would not put it down. And I'm like, Willow, go put it in the car. And she just kept looking at Russ like a deer in headlights because he had given her the ring to hold on to in her purse. And I had no idea. So I'm like, well, go put the purse away.
It doesn't match.
And I'm like, it doesn't match your outfit. What are you doing? And he had told her before we got out of the car, he's like, do not put this purse down. And she was like, poor little child is standing there just like, and he's yelling. He's like, it's fine. I'm like, ah. So we're getting all these really cute shoots and walking around the park and stuff like that. And just having a ton of fun. And I was like, all right, let's go get lunch. And he's like, oh, there's one more place. I want to get one more plate or one more picture by the trees. So I turn around and I'm telling the kids to like not jump in the pond and things like that. Like, I turn around and he dropped onto one knee, and there's our friend with the camera and just getting a million pictures of the whole thing and just captured it all. It was really just sweet and thoughtful. And then he got down and gave each of the kids a gift that matched my ring. So it was all kind of connected and stuff. It was really sweet.
I love that. And then you recently got married. Laura, when we had these, I said, can you send me some photos? She's like, I have so many. We're just adorable. And I was like, these are adorable. I was like, so I tried to combine some of them. So talk about your wedding, because you got married this year, right?
2 years ago.
2 years ago. But did you celebrate this year or something? Or no, it was
we celebrate all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it was a vacation or something on. So a couple years ago. And so did you do it in your hometown? What was that like?
Yeah. So we had to keep it casual, basically. So at the time, on top of having 2 kids, I had gone back to school and was working as many hours as I possibly could outside of school. So I was trying to get a 2-year bachelor degree crammed into a year and a half, and taking care of kids and working. And
we were taking care of the kids
and planning the wedding. So we knew we wanted to keep it low key and as casual as possible, and just have it be as much fun as we didn't want it to be stiff. We didn't want it to be formal. We wanted it to be just casual and fun. And I think the most money we spent was maybe on my dress, and the bar tab. So,
yes. Yeah.
It was at a local brewery, that,
where we went for our first date.
Yeah, where we went on our first date.
That's cute.
And we knew we wanted it to be outside, and it was like 90 degrees out for some reason in Buffalo for the first time ever. And we were just all sweaty, but it was super fun. A good friend of ours who owns a bakery helped out with the desserts. My mom set all the tables and did all the decorations. We got all of our flowers from from the farmer's market, and I just wanted wildflowers all over the place. So I went to the farmer's market like the day before we got married on a Sunday, and I went the day before, and I was like, all right, here's $100. I just need a ton of bouquets. And she's like, oh, what's this for? I was like, my wedding's tomorrow. And she's like, you're crazy. What are you doing? So this poor woman is like having a heart attack trying to put like bouquets together for me. She's like, you didn't plan it. So,
but they turned out great.
They did. They turned out beautiful.
Yeah.
It was exactly what we were going for. We wrote our own vows. We had just a ton of fun driving around, taking pictures for a couple hours beforehand, just all over the city. Anywhere we would find like a funky mural, we'd take a picture in front of it. He set up we're friends with the people at North Park Theater, which is a little like theater over on Hurdle Avenue in Buffalo, little movie theater, and he had the marquee set to say Russ and Laura Burton on there, congratulations type of thing. So we got a lot of pictures underneath that.
Yeah, but generally the whole day was so just lax. I mean, it was like you said, just taking the pictures. Hey, that place is cool. Let's jump out and take a picture there. And
one of our favorite pictures, it was like we stopped on the waterfront just because it was like we needed a restroom. Like, so we all pile out a limo. And then I was like, I'm going to take a picture on the rocks and jump up on the rocks. And he's like, no, you're drunk in a wedding dress. You should not be dancing around on the
before
rocks.
The wedding.
Yeah, before the wedding.
Yeah.
So gave him, I was like, oh, my shoes. And then he's up there and like I'm dancing and like just playing around on the rocks and stuff. And that was one of our favorite pictures. It has the grain silos behind us. And I was just like, you know, doing a little twirl type of thing. But yeah, it was just fun. And, you know, writing our own vows was a ride.
That was a blast.
Yeah.
Which she did not want to do. I talked her into it. Just because, I mean, the whole event, the whole day was so laid back. You know, my college roommate and best friend he was the officiant.
And so he sang to us.
He did sing to us in the middle of, you know, of his presentation. I don't know what else you call it, but
performance.
It was a performance. Yeah, I mean, it was, you know, a friend of mine started recording the whole thing as soon as it started, because, you know, as soon as we started walking out to Elvis music, he was like, oh, I've never seen anything like this before. I'm recording the whole thing.
He walks out to come up to the altar and everybody gave him a standing ovation. They're like, you finally did it.
I appreciated that. That was nice. But it was a great day.
So, you know, again, I think two things that people deal with, you know, again, you have Laura, you have people who have been divorced, who are scared to get married again, might not find someone, or trying to find someone. And then Russ, you've got someone who, male or female, has been single past their 30s, right? People that get this anxiety, you know, women maybe because they want to have children or whatever, and they get in their head. Do either of you have advice for anyone in either of those positions to help them calm down and to be able to find the potential person that they want to be with?
I'll say from my experience, you know, just that, like you said, male or female in your 30s, still single. I mean, I would say don't compromise what you want for whatever timeline you think you need. It's, you know, the right person is going to come along at the right time. And if you overthink it and you're trying to, you know, put all the pieces in order, excuse me, for yourself, it's not going to happen the way you planned it. So just, you know, just relax and let life happen. And, you know, obviously you don't want to sit back and not do anything, but I would say just don't stress out about it and just keep pushing towards, you know, get an idea of what you want. Kind of like Laura said, make sure you know who you are so it becomes more clear who the person is you're looking for. What about you?
So I would say trust your gut. And really trust your instincts. Like if you are going into a relationship and you're just having bad feelings, like trust those bad feelings. That's, you know, relationships shouldn't be hard. Like, you know, everybody, you hear all the time in like movies or romance novels, like, oh, it's just hard. It's hard. It shouldn't be like agonizingly hard. Like it should be, you know, you work at some things, like, you know, we have to work at financial communication or something like that. Like, you know, those little things to make a relationship go, but like, it shouldn't be a struggle and a fight every single day. And if your relationship that you're in is feeling like that, then maybe it's time to take a step back and say, is this really healthy for myself? And is this healthy for the people that are around us?
I think that's good advice. And on the other side, for both of you, how would you say someone would know if this is the right person? They could say the one. Some people don't believe in just one, but if you feel like this is the person I want to commit to for a while or forever.
I think, again, I mean, it's going to be different for everybody, but to me, when it doesn't feel like work, you know, when it does feel, you don't want to say easy because it's never going to be easy, but when you don't have to work so hard at it, and when you can just be yourself and be happy, that to me is the ultimate sign. Because I mean, we're both pretty unique people, to put it nicely. I think if either one of us couldn't be ourselves, I think you're just handicapping yourself and you're not being true to yourself for the relationship. So I think once you know that barrier is out of the way, you're in a pretty good spot.
Yeah. I think really finding your own values and finding what you need in a relationship and what you need for yourself is incredibly important. Like a big thing coming into this relationship, it was, I need to feel comfortable. I need to feel not judged, and I need to be able to laugh freely, and just feel like myself, and we're very quirky people. We do some ridiculous things. We quote movies all the time. So we burst into stupid songs, and we make up song lyrics about everything.
Yeah.
And crack cheesy jokes and I always think people watching us probably think we're absolutely insane. Like our little FBI agent who's watching us or something like that, who's like, whoa. But we have fun and we don't judge each other, not harshly at all. We'll make fun of each other, but it's never out of meanness or spite or anything like that. He wants to go out and do something for a weekend with his friends or something like that. I never second guess or question that anything could go wrong or be an issue. You know what I mean? It's always just okay, see, you should probably go anyways, because we spent a lot of time together in quarantine now. So you need me to pack your bag for you?
But, I got a go bag all set for you, actually.
An element of trust. Yes. That's
yeah,
a
exactly.
Huge piece. So I like to ask this question to every single couple. Laura, I'll start with you. What is something that Russ has done for you recently that showed a sense of care?
Aww.
So many things. Honestly, it's really the little things. In the morning, he's a morning person. I'm not a morning person at all. My alarm goes off at 6 and then 6:10, 6:20, 6:30, keeps going. And it's a really funny joke that I need coffee to function in the morning. So
it's hilarious.
So every morning, he brings me coffee in bed. So as I'm waking up on my probably fourth alarm and rolling over, he'll usually come in and he sets my coffee, knows exactly how I like it, right on my bedstand. And he's like, all right, come on. So just those types of little things really make a difference. And, it just shows okay, he's attentive and he actually just genuinely does care. So I don't know. It's something I look forward to every morning. Nice. So
Russ, what about you? What's something that Laura has done recently that made you show that she really cares for you?
It's tough to beat coffee in the morning. No, I mean, yeah, there's little things obviously here and there. I will say just one thing today, and it was really quick. I was in my little workstation here, and I was just checking our son's homework just to make sure he was all set. And she just snaps back because I'm off this week. I'm on vacation this week, and she just snaps back from her desk and said, "You're not working, are you?" And I don't know. To me, it was nice because she's a little bit of a workaholic herself. So, and I have to yell at her for the same thing. So for her to just be looking out for me to make sure I'm taking that time for myself, it was just a quick little thing, but it really meant a lot.
I love it. Do you have any other words of advice for people that are watching or listening that are either trying to find their significant other or are trying to make sure that their relationship is healthy and happy? Any advice that either of you would give?
You want to start?
You got anything? I mean, any other advice? I mean, other than, what we've been saying, go with your gut and look for those little things. I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, I know, it's almost like, you put a weight on things. If you're in a bad relationship, you think, okay, yeah, sure, this person did, X and O bad thing the other day, but they did this really nice thing, and that was pretty good. I think you got to look for those little things and kind of check the wins and losses column and make sure you're in the best place. I mean, I got to tell you that yes, it was a long time that I was single before I met her. I was really close to getting married a couple of times, and they weren't all awful, but it would not have been a happy relationship. It just felt like, hey, this is the right time. I should be getting married now. We've been together X amount of times, or X amount of years. And, in the end of the day, it would not have been a good, healthy relationship. And I know that now, that I'm in one. So it's, kind of trust your gut, like Laura was saying, and don't pigeonhole yourself into, I need to be in X kind of relationship, or I need to be this kind of person, or, I need to be married by this age. None of it matters. Just be happy.
I think along those same lines, don't pigeonhole yourself into a type either. Like, I've never really, it's funny because I roasted him during our vows.
She did. Yeah.
Where I was like, I didn't expect anything to come out of this, and just kind of closed the vow book and handed it back to the guy. And I was like, yeah, guess we're here now.
I gave this great romantic, poetic vow. And then she holds open the book and says, when I first met you, I didn't expect much. There you go. And it's great because our friend actually got a picture of it. I'm doubled over laughing. Our other groomsmen are just like, oh no. Yeah, it was hilarious. It was great.
But no, I did go into a romantic thing after that. Honestly.
Yeah. No, keep going on about the low expectations you had for me, though. Let's keep hitting that.
So
I think so. If we're going to give advice, make sure there's a real low bar to clear when you're getting into the relationship.
Well, I think it's, like you said, Laura, it's being more open. Yes. It's interesting. I find a lot of people, I've done this myself. I think a lot of people do this where they're like, they get picky about the things that don't matter, what they're wearing, what they look like, their height, their job, when what matters is, do we share the same values? Can I be myself? Do we have fun together?
Exactly.
And like you're saying, Russ, being able to be with someone who just makes you happy and not on a timeline, which I know, again, for some women, that's hard, that those that want to have their own biological children. But even for you, like you said, you thought, I want to be a dad, but dad can mean so many things. And now you have two wonderful kids in a different way. So that's wonderful to hear. If either of you don't have to, but if people want to connect with you, is there any place that they can, if you want to have them follow you on social media of any kind?
He's all over social media. Yeah. I'm on LinkedIn. That's pretty much about it. I have other accounts. I won't use them. So.
Yeah. I mean, Instagram's probably the best one. Off the top of my head, I can't even think what my handle is. I think it's super generic, like Russ Burton or Russ B 1218 or something.
But you have a podcast also. Do you want to share?
I do. Yeah, I have a podcast. Thank you, Carrie. Wow, a plug. I will say it's not very up to date. Yes, I have the one that I did, Death of a Bachelor, that kind of focused more on our relationship and me, kind of coming of age and being, a dad after being alone for so long, and being a good, boyfriend / husband. Talking about the timeline, I'm not saying I'm both things. That was really weird how that came out. But then I have one now, Diary of a DJ, just, not necessarily plugging my own business, just like, hey, I know planning a wedding is really hard to do. There's a lot of uncertainty. So I try to kind of peel back those onion layers just to help people out and just give them, advice just from a third party. Like, hey, this is what I've seen work. This is what I've seen not work. Here's my advice. Take it for what it is. So, RussBurtonEntertainment.com. You can find that podcast right there.
Wonderful. Well, I thank you both so much for being vulnerable and sharing your story, and, being able to watch and listen to both of you just laugh and enjoy each other really shows what it means to be in a healthy and happy relationship. So I thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie.